The morning of Margaret's funeral arrived, with a grey sky that seemed to mourn alongside me. I stood in our bedroom, though now it felt like mine alone, staring at the black suit Margaret had helped me pick out years ago for occasions like this. I never imagined I'd be wearing it for her. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to our channel. This is a story about family, betrayal, and the true meaning of love. Don't miss what happens next. My name is Robert Mitchell, and I'm 73 years old. For 52 years, Margaret was my everything. We built a life together in Charleston, South Carolina. A beautiful life, filled with Sunday barbecues, holidays around our oak dining table, and 6 children we raised with all the love 2 people could give. David, our oldest at 51, Jennifer 49, Michael 46, Susan 43, Thomas 40, and little Elizabeth, our baby, at 37. Margaret spent her last 6 months battling pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave us the diagnosis on a Tuesday afternoon last March. I remember because it was raining, the kind of heavy southern rain that feels like the sky is crying. Margaret held my hand in that sterile doctor's office and whispered, "We've faced everything together, Robert. We'll face this too." But we didn't face it together as a family. We faced it as 2. The funeral home on King Street was modest but elegant. Margaret would have approved. She always said she didn't want anything flashy. Simple and meaningful, she'd say. The room smelled of lilies and old wood, and soft gospel music played from hidden speakers. I arrived an hour early with Pastor Williams, who had married us all those years ago. Now, in his 80s, he moved slowly, his cane tapping against the polished floor. "Robert," he said gently, placing a weathered hand on my shoulder, "your children, have they confirmed their coming?" I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. 6 unanswered messages, 6 phone calls that went to voicemail, 6 children who hadn't even bothered to respond. Hit that like button if you think family should always be there for each other, no matter what. "They're busy," I heard myself saying, though the words tasted like ash in my mouth. David lived in New York, running his investment firm. He'd sent a text 3 weeks ago. "Dad, I'm swamped with the merger. You understand, right? Jennifer was in Los Angeles, working on her 3rd divorce and her 4th plastic surgery procedure. She'd said, 'Mom would understand that I can't handle emotional situations right now. I'm too fragile.' Michael was in Chicago with his pharmaceutical company. His excuse, conference in Tokyo, already booked. Can't change it now. Susan in Miami sent, 'The kids have soccer tournaments. You know how it is.' Thomas in Atlanta, new promotion. Can't take time off. Just started. And Elizabeth, who lived just 40 minutes away in Mount Pleasant. I'll try, Dad. But you know how Brad feels about funerals. They trigger his anxiety. The service was scheduled for 2 p.m. By 1:45, the chapel had filled with faces I hadn't expected, faces that meant more than I'd realized. Maria Rodriguez sat in the 3rd row, crying softly into a handkerchief. Maria had been our housekeeper for 25 years, but she was so much more than that. She was family. When Jennifer had her first baby, Maria flew to Los Angeles on her own dime to help. When Thomas broke his arm at 12, Maria sat with him in the emergency room while Margaret and I dealt with a crisis at the restaurant we used to own. Comment below what city you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Beside Maria sat her daughter Sophia, now a nurse at MUSC. Margaret had helped pay for Sophia's nursing school when Maria's hours had been cut during the 2008 recession. In the front row sat James and Carol Peterson, our neighbors for 30 years. James had his arm around Carol, who was sobbing. Margaret had been Carol's closest friend. They'd walk together every morning at 6 a.m. around the neighborhood, rain or shine. When Carol's mother died, Margaret had organized meals for the family for 2 weeks straight. Behind them were the Johnsons, an African-American family from our church. Margaret had tutored their grandson Deshaun in reading every Tuesday evening for 3 years, refusing any payment. Deshawn was now in his second year at the College of Charleston, studying education. He sat with his grandparents, tears streaming down his young face. I saw Mrs. Chen from the corner store where Margaret bought fresh vegetables. I saw Marcus Williams, who'd mowed our lawn every Saturday for 15 years. I saw the book club ladies, 8 women who'd met at our house once a month for 20 years. At 2 p.m. exactly, Pastor Williams approached me. His eyes were sad but knowing. "Robert, should we wait a bit longer?" I looked at the door one more time. Empty. Just the oak door and the afternoon light filtering through the stained glass. "No," I said quietly. "Let's begin. The people who loved her are here." If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe to our channel. We have more incredible true stories coming your way. The service was beautiful. Pastor Williams spoke of Margaret's kindness, her laugh that could fill a room, her hands that were always busy helping someone. Maria read a poem in Spanish that Margaret had loved. Carol shared stories that had everyone laughing through their tears, like the time Margaret accidentally dyed the neighbor's white poodle pink while trying to help with a home grooming session. Deshawn stood up, unplanned, his voice cracking. "Mrs. Mitchell believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She told me I was smart enough, good enough, worthy enough. She's the reason I'm in college. She's the reason I want to be a teacher. She saved my life." The chapel erupted in soft amens and nods. At the cemetery, under ancient oak trees draped with Spanish moss, we laid Margaret to rest beside her parents. The Atlantic breeze carried the scent of salt and jasmine. 73 people stood around that grave, 73 people whose lives Margaret had touched, but not one of them shared her blood. As the last shovel of South Carolina red clay covered her casket, my phone buzzed. A text from David. "Sorry we couldn't make it, Dad. Send us photos." Photos. They wanted photos of their mother's funeral. I turned off my phone and walked to my car, Maria holding my left arm, James supporting my right. That night, in our empty house on Trad Street, I sat in Margaret's reading chair by the window. Her book still lay open on the side table, To Kill a Mockingbird, a novel she'd read at least 20 times. Her reading glasses sat on top of it. I picked up the phone and called my attorney, Richard Harrison. We'd gone to high school together. "Richard," I said, "I need to change my will, all of it. Tomorrow morning." There was a pause. "Robert, are you sure? Maybe you should wait. Take some time." 52 years, Richard. I've had 52 years to know who truly values family. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. "I'll be ready," he said softly. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. The next chapter reveals what Robert decided to do with his entire estate. I hung up and looked at the walls covered with family photos. 6 children in various stages of life. Birthday parties, graduations, weddings, all those moments Margaret had planned, paid for, and poured her heart into. In every single photo, Margaret was there, smiling, her arms around her children. Where were they when she needed them most? I thought about the 6 months of doctor appointments, chemotherapy sessions, and sleepless nights. Margaret losing her hair, her strength, her dignity, all while I held her hand and told her she was still the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Not once did our children visit. Not once. David sent a check. Jennifer sent flowers from an online service. Michael sent a gift basket. Susan called every few weeks, staying on the phone for exactly 7 minutes before making an excuse to hang up. Thomas sent encouraging texts copied from internet quote sites. Elizabeth came once, stayed for 30 minutes and spent 25 of them on her phone. But Maria came every single day after her work shift. She'd make Margaret's favorite Cuban coffee, sit by her bed, and tell her stories in Spanish and English, making her laugh even when the pain was unbearable. What do you think Robert should do? Comment your thoughts below. Carol brought fresh flowers from her garden every Monday. James installed a railing on our front steps so Margaret could get to the porch to feel the sun on her face. Sophia, Maria's daughter, used her nursing skills to manage Margaret's pain when I didn't know what to do. Deshawn read to her every Thursday evening, poetry, news articles, anything to keep her mind engaged. These people, these beautiful, loving people, had shown me what family truly meant. And it wasn't about blood. It was about showing up. It was about love in action, not love in words alone. As midnight approached and the house settled into silence, I made my decision final in my heart. Margaret would have approved. Actually, knowing her, she probably would have done it herself if she'd had the chance. Tomorrow, I would rewrite everything. Tomorrow, I would honor the people who honored her. Chapter 2. The Reading of the Will. 3 weeks after Margaret's funeral, my children suddenly remembered I existed. It started with David calling on a Wednesday morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee, just half a pot now, not a full one, when my phone rang. "Dad, hey, how are you holding up?" His voice was artificially bright. The tone he used with nervous investors. "Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. This chapter reveals the shocking confrontation between Robert and his children." "I'm managing, David. Listen, I feel terrible about missing the funeral. The merger was, well, you know how it is. But I'm thinking of coming down next month. We should talk about the house, your finances, making sure you're set up properly. I'm 73, not senile. I can manage my finances." Of course. But you know, at your age, it might be time to think about assisted living, maybe selling the house. That property on Trad Street is worth over $2 million now. The market's hot. A pause. Well, you know, as a family, making smart decisions together. I hung up. Over the next 2 days, all 6 children called with variations of the same conversation. Jennifer wanted to know about Margaret's jewelry. Michael suggested I move closer to one of them, specifically into a nice retirement community where the property could be liquidated. Susan asked about the beach house in Folly Beach we'd owned for 30 years. Thomas mentioned the stock portfolio. Elizabeth, the most transparent of them all, simply asked, "So, Dad, when are we doing the will reading?" Like this video. If you think the children don't deserve anything, let us know in the comments. The will reading was scheduled for Saturday, October 14th at Richard Harrison's law office on Broad Street. The office was in a restored Charleston single house with high ceilings, crown molding, and windows that overlooked the historic district. I arrived at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. Richard met me in the waiting area, his face serious. "Robert, are you absolutely certain about this? There's still time to—" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Richard, except marrying Margaret." He nodded slowly. "All right then, they're starting to arrive." David was first, dressed in an expensive navy suit, checking his Apple Watch every 30 seconds. Jennifer followed, her face stretched tight from recent cosmetic work, designer sunglasses perched on her head. Michael arrived with his wife Karen, who I barely knew despite 20 years of marriage. Susan came alone, complaining about traffic from the airport. Thomas showed up looking uncomfortable in khakis and a button-down. Elizabeth was last, Brad in tow, both of them looking annoyed. They barely glanced at me as they filed into the conference room, but they hugged each other, exclaiming how long it had been, how they should get together more often. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see how Robert's children react to his decision. The conference room had a long mahogany table that seated 12. My children spread out, taking seats with their coffee and smartphones. The morning light through the tall windows created shadows across their faces. Richard sat at the head of the table, legal documents spread before him. I sat at the opposite end, my hands folded, watching my children, really seeing them for perhaps the first time in years. "Thank you all for coming," Richard began formally. "We're here for the reading of the last will and testament of Margaret Louise Mitchell and the declaration of changes to Robert James Mitchell's estate planning." "Wait, both wills?" Jennifer interrupted. Mom had a will. Yes, Richard said patiently. Your mother updated her will 3 weeks before she passed, and your father has made recent changes to his estate as well. David leaned forward. Recent changes? Dad, why didn't you discuss this with us? I spoke for the first time. Why would I? You didn't discuss your mother's funeral with me. You simply didn't show up. The room went cold. Dad, that's not fair, Susan started. Fair? My voice was quiet but hard. Let me tell you about fair, Susan. Fair is your mother lying in a hospital bed, asking when her children would visit. Fair is me making excuses for you while she cried herself to sleep. Fair is a woman who gave you life, raised you, sacrificed everything for you, dying surrounded by strangers who loved her more than her own blood did. Comment below, Team Robert or Team Children. We want to hear your opinion. We had reasons, Michael began. Oh, I know your reasons. David had a merger. Jennifer had her face to fix. Michael had a conference. Susan had soccer games. Thomas had a new job. And Elizabeth had Brad's anxiety to worry about. I looked at each of them. But Maria Rodriguez, who cleaned our toilets for 25 years, was there every single day. Carol Peterson, who's battled arthritis for a decade, was there. James, who has a pacemaker, was there. A 19-year-old kid named Deshawn, who owed your mother nothing but gratitude, was there. This isn't about, Jennifer tried. This is exactly about that. And I stood up, my hands shaking. This is about 6 people who forgot where they came from, who forgot the woman who sat up with you through nightmares, who worked double shifts at the restaurant to pay for your college, who celebrated every achievement and mourned every loss with you. Richard cleared his throat gently. Robert, perhaps we should proceed with the formal reading. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Yes, let them hear it. Hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. Richard put on his reading glasses. The Last Will and Testament of Margaret Louise Mitchell, dated September 3rd, 2024. After specific bequests and final expenses, the remainder of Margaret's personal estate, valued at approximately $340,000, is to be distributed as follows. He paused, looking at my children, who were leaning forward eagerly. To Maria Rodriguez, $50,000 and all of Margaret's jewelry, with the exception of her wedding ring set. Jennifer gasped. What? Her jewelry was supposed to come to... Richard continued, his voice firm. To Carol and James Peterson, $40,000 and the contents of Margaret's library, including all first editions and signed copies. This is insane. David stood up. Dad, you can't let... Sit down, David, I said coldly. You'll hear all of it. Richard went on. To Sophia Rodriguez, $30, zone dole, toward completion of her master's degree in nursing. To Deshawn Johnson, $50, $100 in a trust for educational expenses. To the St. Michael's Episcopal Church, $20, $0 for the community meal program Margaret volunteered with. The remaining $150,000 is to be divided equally among the following. Marcus Williams, the Garden Club, the Book Club Collective, Mrs. Chen, and 15 other individuals who provided care, comfort, and companionship to Margaret Mitchell in her final months. The silence was deafening. And to my children, Richard continued, Margaret leaves each of you a letter. He pulled out 6 envelopes from a folder and slid them across the table. None of my children reached for them. Like this video if you think Margaret made the right choice. And don't forget to subscribe. That's it? Thomas finally spoke. Letters. That's not even the main event, I said quietly. Richard, continue with mine. Richard pulled out another document. The estate of Robert James Mitchell, including the primary residence on Trad Street, the beach property in Folly Beach. All investment accounts, retirement funds, and additional assets totaling approximately $4 to $7 million will be distributed as follows upon Robert's death or incapacitation. My children were very still now. To Maria Rodriguez, the Folly Beach House, free and clear, and $200,000. To Carol and James Peterson, $300,000. To Sophia Rodriguez, $150,000. To Deshaun Johnson, $200,000 and funding for a complete 4-year education degree. The Trad Street House will be sold, with proceeds divided among St. Michael's Church, the Charleston Literacy Council, and the Medical University of South Carolina Cancer Research Program in honor of Margaret Mitchell. The remainder of the estate will be distributed among 35 individuals and organizations that provided care and comfort to Margaret and Robert Mitchell. And to his 6 children, $1,000 each, the minimum required to prove they were not forgotten but deliberately excluded. What would you do in Robert's position? Comment below. The explosion was immediate. "You can't do this." David was on his feet, face red. "We're your children. We'll contest this." "On what grounds?" Richard asked calmly. "Your father is of sound mind. I have 3 witnesses, including 2 doctors, who will attest to that. The will is ironclad." "This is because of one funeral." Jennifer was crying, mascara running. "One mistake?" I stood up slowly, looking at each of them. One funeral? It was 6 months of abandonment. It was a lifetime of taking your mother for granted. It was every holiday you cancelled, every call you cut short, every promise you broke. The funeral was just the final proof of who you really are. "We loved Mom," Susan was sobbing. "We did." Did you?" I asked quietly. "Because love isn't words, Susan. Love is showing up. Love is sacrifice. Love is putting someone else first. Maria loved your mother. She barely speaks English, works 2 jobs, and she was there every single day. Deshaun loved your mother, a kid who grew up with nothing, and he made time. But you 6 who had everything she gave you, you couldn't even make time for her funeral. Subscribe now. We're almost to the incredible conclusion of Robert's story." Michael was shaking his head. "This is revenge. This is cruel." "No, Michael. Cruel is what you did to your mother. This is justice. This is me making sure that the people who truly loved Margaret are rewarded for their loyalty, their kindness, their humanity, something you 6 seem to have forgotten." Elizabeth, the youngest, the one I'd hoped might be different, finally spoke. "What if we promise to change? What if we—" "It's too late for promises, Elizabeth. Your mother waited 6 months for you to change. She died waiting." I picked up my coat. "Richard has copies of everything. You can try to contest it if you want, but you'll lose and you'll spend whatever you might get on legal fees. Or you can accept it, read your mother's letters, and maybe, just maybe, learn something about what it means to be family." I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "By the way, your mother's letters. She wrote them in her last week, when she could barely hold a pen. When every word cost her pain and effort. That's how much she loved you, even after everything. I suggest you read them." I left the conference room with Richard behind me. Behind us, I could hear crying, shouting, the sound of chairs scraping. "You okay?" Richard asked as we reached the lobby. "I will be," I said. "For the first time in 6 months, I feel like I did right by Margaret. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The final chapter reveals what happens next." Chapter 3. Letters from Beyond. 2 months passed. Autumn in Charleston turned the garden at our Trad Street house into a canvas of rust and gold. I spent my days sorting through Margaret's things, each item a memory that made me smile through tears. The house was quieter now, but not empty. Maria came by every Tuesday to have coffee and sit in Margaret's chair, telling me stories about her day. Carol and James invited me to dinner every Friday. Deshawn stopped by on Sundays after church to check on me, often bringing Sophia with him. They'd become close friends, bonded by their love for Margaret. If you're enjoying this final chapter, please subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories. My children? I heard nothing from them directly, but Richard called in early December with an update. Robert, I need to tell you something. Your children hired an attorney, actually 3 attorneys, to contest the will. I sighed, settling into my reading chair. I expected as much. They withdrew the challenge last week. I sat up straighter. They did? Yes. Apparently Jennifer broke down and finally read her mother's letter. Then she made the others read theirs. Whatever Margaret wrote to them. It changed something. They dropped everything. I was silent for a moment. Did they say anything else? Just that they wouldn't bother you anymore. David specifically said, and I'm quoting, "He was right. We don't deserve anything." After I hung up with Richard, I went to my bedroom and opened the top drawer of Margaret's dresser. Inside was a small wooden box where she kept her most precious items. I pulled out a bundle of papers held together with a blue ribbon, 6 letters, copies of the ones she'd written to our children. Margaret had asked me to make copies before sealing the originals. "I want you to read them someday," she'd whispered, her voice weak, "so you'll know what I told them, so you'll understand." I'd never had the courage until now. Like this video if you think Margaret's words will change everything, and please comment what you think she wrote. I opened David's first. "My dearest David, you were my first miracle, the baby who made me a mother. I remember holding you at 3 a.m., watching the sunrise through the hospital window, thinking that nothing would ever be as perfect as that moment. You were always so driven, so ambitious. I was proud of that. But somewhere along the way, you started measuring success in dollars instead of moments. You built an empire, but forgot to build a family. I'm not writing this to punish you. I'm writing because I'm dying, and I won't get another chance to tell you this. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Money can't hold your hand when you're scared. Power can't comfort you when you're lonely. I forgive you for not being here. But I pray you'll forgive yourself and learn to show up for the people who matter before it's too late. Before you're the one in the hospital bed, wondering where everyone went. I loved you the day you were born. I love you still. I love you always. Mom." I wiped my eyes and opened Jennifer's. "My beautiful Jennifer, you were always so concerned with appearances. Even as a little girl, you wanted everything to be perfect. Your hair, your clothes, your room. I understood that. I wanted you to feel beautiful. But somewhere you started believing that beauty was only on the outside. You changed your face, your body, chasing some ideal that doesn't exist. You forgot that the most beautiful thing about you was your laugh, your kindness, the way you used to dance in the kitchen while I cooked. Real beauty is being there for someone when they need you. Real beauty is showing up even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when it's not convenient. You didn't come to my funeral. Maybe you were afraid of seeing me in a casket, of facing death. But honey, death is part of life, and life is about being present for the messy, hard, beautiful moments. I love the woman you were. I hope you find her again. Mom, subscribe to our channel right now. We're revealing all 6 letters. Michael's letter was shorter. "Michael, you were my thinker, always asking why, always figuring out how things worked. You became a brilliant man, and I'm so proud of your mind. But I wish you'd use that brilliant mind to realize that relationships need more than logic. They need time. They need presence. You can't schedule love like a business meeting or postpone it like a conference call. I waited for you. Every day, I thought maybe today would be the day you'd visit. Your father made excuses for you, but we both knew the truth. I wasn't a priority. I hope you learn before it's too late that the people you love need you now. Not later, not when it's convenient. Now. I loved you enough to tell you the truth, even at the end. Mum Susan's letter made me cry. My Susan, you were my peacemaker, the one who hated conflict, who always wanted everyone to be happy. That's a beautiful quality, but it can also be a prison. You didn't come because you were afraid it would be too hard. You protected yourself from pain, but in doing so, you missed the chance to say goodbye. You missed the chance to show your mother that she mattered more than your comfort. I understand fear. I was afraid too. Afraid of dying, afraid of pain, afraid of leaving your father alone. But I faced it because I had to. That's what adults do. We face hard things because they matter. I hope you'll teach your children something I couldn't teach you. That love sometimes means doing hard things. That showing up matters more than staying comfortable. You'll always be my girl, but I wish you'd been brave enough to be here. Mom, hit that like button if these letters are making you emotional. We're almost at the end. Thomas's letter was direct. Thomas, you were my surprise. The baby I didn't expect, but loved the moment I knew you existed. You made our family complete. A new promotion. That's why you didn't come. You chose a job over your mother. And I want you to understand something. No job will ever love you back. No career will hold your hand when you're dying. No promotion will remember you when you're gone. I spent 25 years at a restaurant your father and I owned, serving people, saving money, building something for our family. I would have given it all up in a heartbeat for one more day with the people I loved. You're chasing something that doesn't matter. I hope you realize it before you lose everything that does. I loved you anyway. I loved you always. Mom. And finally, Elizabeth's, the one that hurt most because she lived so close. My baby Elizabeth. You'll always be my baby, even though you're 37 now. You lived 40 minutes away, 40 minutes. The drive from your house to mine takes less time than an episode of a TV show. But Brad's anxiety kept you away. You put his comfort over my dying, and I need you to hear this, sweetheart. That's not love. That's codependency. A partner who truly loved you would have said, "Go be with your mother. I'll be fine for a few hours." A healthy relationship doesn't keep you from the people you love. It supports you in loving them. I worry about you the most. I worry that you've made yourself so small to accommodate someone else's fears that you've forgotten who you are. You used to be so full of life, so brave, so bright. I hope you find yourself again. I hope you remember that you matter, that your needs matter. That your mother lying in a hospital bed mattered. I forgave you a long time ago. Now forgive yourself and change. I will love you forever, Mom. Please subscribe if you're not already. And comment telling us which letter affected you most. I sat with those letters for hours as the December afternoon faded into evening. Margaret had been kind but honest, loving but firm. She'd given them the truth they needed to hear. 3 weeks before Christmas, something unexpected happened. I was in the garden, trimming the roses Margaret had loved, when I heard a car in the driveway. Then another, and another. I walked around to the front of the house to find all 6 of my children standing on the sidewalk, looking uncertain and nervous. David spoke first, his voice rough. "Dad, we were hoping we could talk to you." I stood there, garden shears in hand, looking at them. They looked different somehow. Smaller, humbler, more human. "We read Mom's letters," Jennifer said, tears already streaming. "Really read them. And Dad, her voice broke. "We're so sorry. We're so sorry." Elizabeth stepped forward. "I left Brad. Well, I didn't leave him exactly. But I told him he needed therapy for his anxiety and that I needed to start living my own life. I should have come, Dad. I should have been here for Mom. I have no excuse." "None of us do," Michael added. "We failed her. We failed you. And we understand if you never want to see us again, but we wanted to tell you in person that we know we were wrong, that we're ashamed, that we wish we could go back and do everything differently." Like this video if you think Robert should forgive his children. Comment if you think it's too late." Susan was sobbing. "I dream about her, Dad. Every night. And in the dreams, I'm trying to get to her, but I can't. I'm always too late, and I wake up knowing that's exactly what happened. I was too late." Thomas just stood there, tears running down his face silently. David pulled out a folder. "We're not here to contest the will. We're not here to ask for anything. Actually, we wanted to give you this." He handed it to me. Inside were 6 checks, each made out to the Margaret Mitchell Memorial Fund. "We started it," David explained, "a charity in Mom's name, for people who can't afford cancer treatment. We've each donated $50,000 to start it. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But we wanted to honor her the way she deserved to be honored." I looked at the checks, then at my children's faces. They looked older than they had 2 months ago, more weathered, but also more real. "We can't change what we did," Jennifer said softly, "but we're trying to change who we are. We meet every Sunday now, all of us, on Zoom. We call it Family Day. We talk, we share, we actually try to be there for each other, the way Mom taught us to be before we forgot. We know you have a new family now," Elizabeth said. "Maria, Carol, James, Deshawn, they're your family, they earned it. But if you'd let us, we'd like to try to earn our way back too, not for inheritance or money, just for the chance to know you again before it's too late. Subscribe right now. This ending will restore your faith in redemption." I stood there in the fading light, surrounded by the garden Margaret had tended for 40 years, looking at the 6 people we'd created together. They were flawed, they'd failed, but they were here now. Margaret's voice echoed in my memory from a conversation we'd had a month before she died. "Robert," she'd whispered, "if they ever come back, if they ever really understand, forgive them. Not because they deserve it, but because unforgiveness will eat you alive, and because people can change. Not all of them will, but some might, and those who do deserve a chance." "I'd like to think about this," I said finally, "but you can come inside, we can have coffee, we can talk." The relief on their faces was palpable. As we walked into the house, David stopped at the threshold. "Dad, one more thing. We'd like to meet them. Maria, Carol, James, all of them. We want to thank them for being there when we weren't, and we want to learn from them about being family." I nodded slowly. "I think that can be arranged." That Christmas was different than any I'd had before. We didn't have it at the Trad Street house, too many memories that were still raw. Instead, we rented a hall at St. Michael's Church. My 6 children came. But so did Maria and her family, Carol and James, Deshawn and his grandparents, and 30 other people who had loved Margaret. It was awkward at first. My children didn't know how to act around the people who'd replaced them in my life, but slowly conversations started. Jennifer helped Maria's granddaughter with her makeup. Michael talked to Deshawn about college and career planning. David discussed investments with James, offering to help him optimize his retirement portfolio for free. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And please hit that like button. Susan and Elizabeth spent an hour with Carol, listening to stories about Margaret. Stories they'd never heard because they'd never taken the time to listen. I watched it all from a chair in the corner, a cup of Maria's famous Cuban coffee in my hand. "She's smiling down on this, you know," a voice said. I turned to find Richard Harrison sitting down next to me. "You think so?" "I know so. Margaret always believed in second chances. She believed people could change. Some of them are changing," I agreed. "The question is whether it will last." "Only time will tell," Richard said. "But they're trying. That's something." As de tentar novamente esta resposta foi pausada porque Claude atingiu seu limite máximo de caracteres para uma mensagem. Clique em continuar para que Claude prossiga. Continuar.